Good evening, friends. It's so nice to be here and to a packed audience. So, I'd like to tell you how I got to meet Doshi and how the whole experience with Doshi has been for me and for Bijoy. So, I just returned from London in 2007 after working in corporate graphic design for several years. And I'd made my first film in Dubai in the deserts. And this film went to Rome International Film Festival, and I realized that there is something in filmmaking that I need to pursue. So I came back to India in 2007, and that was my first trip back to India. Actually, I was in Dubai for all my life, and this is my first entry into India. And I was exploring what next to do in filmmaking. And I went to Madras to document this last handwritten newspaper called Musalman. So I made this short trailer called The Last Calligraphers, and I was planning to do that as my project when Bijoy told me that he would like to go and meet Doshi and see if we can, do a film on him. So I was curious to know who is this person, and so Bijoy and me, first what we did, we hired a camera in Bangalore, interviewed a few people in Bangalore, architects. I don't know Doshi, I don't know his work, I don't know anything about him, but I just wanted to do a new project and I got onto it. So we did that, and then we spoke to Doshi. Bijoy called him and said that we want to come there, meet you, and try and make a film. And Doshi immediately accepted without even knowing who I am or who. I have no expertise in filmmaking. So we went there and we hired another camera. It was all we're just going with the flow. And I met him for the first time, and I completely felt like I'm in the presence of, like my father or grandfather or someone I felt very close to immediately when I saw him for the first time. And I realized that there is something amazing that, it's not that he's just an architect, but he's also a philosopher, poet, and he has so many other things to say about life. And for me, that was amazing because coming to India and experiencing that from a sage kind of perspective was really great. And so we got onto the project and we went with him, shot a lot of, it's gone off again. Shot a lot of footage on all the projects, came back to Bangalore. So when I was in London, I had written these pieces of music for an album. And then when I started editing the film and looking at all the content, somehow magically all the things that he said, we framed into philosophies around the projects. And we made those into chapters so that the film is not like, it's not like one whole thing. You can watch it in different sections also as separate short films. And somehow strangely, again, magically, so much magic has happened through these journeys with Doshi. It's like I'm just naming just few of them. And the music strangely just fell perfectly in place on all the chapters, the timing, the cuts and everything that I was making with the film was working perfectly with the music. And that was again so this is what Vijay was talking about, that the alignment, the divine alignment, or the stars had to align for this experience to happen. So we trusted the divine and surrendered to the project and just let it flow with us. So what I would like to show you is one of the chapters from the first film, which is from his office in Sarkej, and that will give you in Sangat, sorry. This is some of the shots that we had when we went to Melkote and in Indology on the first film. And so we can see the first chapter, see the chapter from Sangat, and then we can, I'll talk about the second film after that.
The whole idea is If it is a sustainable building, it should use everything which is available from almost waste. And all this is done by the local people. This is all done. I told them just do what you like. I gave them pieces. So they wanted, this is Amitabh Bachchan for them. So this is where you enter. Very small, inconspicuous entrance. Not a royal entrance, no portico, nothing, a little courtyard. It's like a domestic entrance. And the entrance here is even like that, you know, it's very simple. I was thinking, why should an office be like an office? Why should I not only have an office only for myself but close at 5? Why can't it become a public space? So you're talking about public and private, form versus formlessness, growth and other things, and yet it has to be a studio. And then you talk about partly above, partly below ground. All this happened. I think now you can shoot my granddaughter. Let us see my darling daughter. I made this building by chance, the extension. The building happened because I had to make this into non-agricultural land. And so I had to find something. Yeah. So the neighbor had only curved sheets. So I said, overnight, let me make the curved sheets and make a plan. So I made a plan and I made the roof and I got my stamp. But then I said, my God, how nice this is. So always there are clues. We must be aware to use them. So you can get the sense of all these spaces. And these buildings insert into this, as if that this building is going in. It moves like this. And this is, you can see the old sample. And it's north-south. And then I get a very big garden here. Again, this is against Vastu. This is west. And this is south. So one Vastu chap came here and he saw this. He says, are you going to have some trouble? I said, no. He says, you never had any problem? I said, no. In fact, I have been successful. After a month, he comes back and says, you are right. This is where Dhirubhai Ambani's entrance is. This is Vastu. I said, why don't I make a village? And that's what I like, a tree, a garden, the steps. And that's how it began to happen. And then one day I made those arches and then became everything. And again, it has all the West products. It has China mosaic, which was never used before. It has Gaudi, it has Wright, everything is there. It is like a good food that you enjoy, which is done by the best chefs, but you are the one who is digesting this, and you have to convert that into your blood and your life. And what I do is only follow this biological order. Borrow everything and finally become yourself. And that Gandhiji's idea that, look, open the windows but see that your roof is not blown out. Your foundations have to be strong. So you have to be deep inside an Indian who is frugal, who can invent, who can take a chance and who can starve. There is a student here from Stuttgart, who is working here, and I was talking her about Indianness, and she mentioned something very interesting. She says, Indianness is in riding in the bus or in the train. In the train, there are no windows which are closed. You are in a journey and the air is flowing all the time, everywhere, and you are partly inside and partly outside. I think that is India. And not only but this way, physically, philosophically also. We are very ambiguous, more or less. I may come, I may not come.
So, what happened is we wanted to try and do a part two, like, 10 years later. So we tried to do this in 2017 when we went on his 90th birthday, but somehow it didn't happen. 2018 again we tried to do it, but somehow the alignment was not happening. 2019, luckily, Ruturaj Parik was organizing a festival in Goa called Frame Conclave, and he said, why don't you try and meet Doshi and try to do this part two again? And this time it clicked. So we went there again for two trips, once in June and once in July, just 6 days totally, and we got to spend time with him again. And we shot the second film. But the interesting thing here is what we're going to see in the Sarkej chapter of the second film is the play of the weather that was so magical that day. When we reached there, it was sunny and there was no sign of anything, no rain, nothing. And we got into Sarkej and we were talking, and suddenly Doshi started talking about the time when he was there and the clouds opened and the rain came down. And strangely, just within 5 minutes, it started pouring. And this is what we call, like the alignment of all these four forces, like Ruturaj, Bijoy, Doshi and me, and the climate. All these things had to come, like Bijoy just said earlier, and just align. And that was the great magic that happened. And we were lucky to spend that time with him. And let's watch this chapter, and then we can open up for discussion. Yeah.
The beauty of Sarkej is several centuries have happened, but that building has not changed, but we feel almost new every time we come, because it has a dialogue with our inner core. Are we really talking about a dialogue between that space and our child and our livelihood and our dreams? That's why the architecture doesn't become alive. Buildings become only alive when there is a dream. There is that hidden aspiration. There is that longing. And that longing, for something which we are searching. And look at the amount of diversity that is there in one panel. I mean, if you look at it, there are how many panels, but look, each panel, there are 4 maybe, but 4, 5, then every time you see something else. So there is a standard and there is a variation. There is a multiplication and there is an exception. Pause. Where are the pauses in our buildings? Do we pause at all? Do we disappear and reappear? So Sarkej Rosa to me is a great lesson. 600 years they knew how to collect water, how to create a tank, how to create places for public and private, reverences and social structure, gathering and moving. And I think that is why this Rosa to me has always been very important. I have been seeing it for the last 60 years. I remember once I came here and it was a sunlight and it was the beginning of monsoon, and suddenly, and there was a water here, the water was there always full. So you could imagine the shadow, the reflections and the light and the sun shining and the movement of water. And suddenly the clouds came and then they burst and the sky became blue. What was it like? But we were sitting there alone and watching this change. It's like another world. The static became dynamic. The stories became real. And you are actually an illusion. Strange. Are we really an illusion or are we permanent? Actually, what we think is ourselves, we are absolutely temporary. We don't even think about, nowadays we don't think about death, You go and send the fellow to the hospital inside and he goes to ICU and then he says, oh no, but he's no more there, finished. Okay, it's all gone. Can I go back to my work? I have a commitment. That's my life. There is no pain. There is no loss. There is no longing. And after 2 hours, we are back to our mobile and doing transactions globally. So, value for money, value for time, value for our sensitivity, value for our thinking, value for our future, value for our past. I think there is nothing left. So how can we expect architecture with value which is inert? How would you get this kind of odd space here and you get only hard soft light and hard light and then these columns in semi-light? The drama will not happen. This drama can only happen when you have a drawing and you have this dream and you are trying to create that dream through your design and your hand is moving and you are visualizing these spaces and then you feel the sunlight coming. You feel shivered, you feel something and that says push the column there, and then you would place the column there. So that instinct, that sensitivity, like they play guitar, they play music, so they are connected to that string and that little senses on the tips. That doesn't happen. Why we can't do like this work? Do we have time? Boy. do we have... we don't think of time, but we also say we don't have time. How come? And what is always wonderful, we don't get connected because we don't have time to pause. આપણે રાહ નથી જોતા ને કોઈ બેસતા નથી અહીંયા 2 મિનિટ બેસીએ અહીંયા આરામથી જોઈએ દુનિયા વરસાદ છે વાદળા છે. So atmosphere is the key of architecture. How do we create an atmosphere which would take you into another mood and that mood would create unexpected thoughts and the thoughts would have to unravel stories which are buried deep inside. And in those stories you remember your childhood or your other episodes and you become suddenly one. Thought, idea, story, memory, association and everything. It's exactly like having a good meal and you have a burp. You have a good meal and you have a burp and then you say, what a wonderful meal I had. That's what it is. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much, Architect Vijay and Premjit, for such an amazing presentation.